So we got a 2016 Jeep Cherokee here. This one's got a network fault, got a bunch of warnings on the dashboard. It doesn't move if you shift it in reverse or drive. It just stays there with these faults on the dash. So I'm going to pull up the network topology here, and you can see ABS at the top is red, and then EPB for electronic parking brake is now red at the bottom. Both are intermittently losing communication. You'll see they go between yellow and red. So that's indicating a communication issue on those. And we have the EPS, which never loses or never gains communication. The PTU at the top, power transfer unit, which is orange, is a usual color for YTech. If it's a new module and requires a flash, once you go into the module, it'll show you that there's a flash available. You'll flash it, and then it'll regain communication after performing the flash. We got our CAN-C network diagram here, pretty big, but I wanted to show quick before I zoom in. We have two star connectors, one on the left and one on the right. And what I'm going to want to do originally is unplug the bridge that connects those two together and see which side of the network has the fault. Is it going to be this left side or the right side? Because determining that is going to eliminate half the modules on the network right out of the gate. So it'll give you a little bit of a smaller area to work with. So we're going to be working with this right side on this one. And you could see we have a bunch of modules that are all plugged into this. Now, these all communicate together, so if there's an issue on one of these, it's going to essentially pull down the entire network because all of these are bridged together, and then these two star connectors are also bridged together. So, going to want to gain access to this, see what the waveform looks like, and start unplugging modules to see if we can make it better or if it's going to be a wiring issue. So this is a location for those two star connectors. It's under the center console, so we're going to have to remove that to gain access to those star connectors and perform some testing. So I got my picoscope plugged into that star connector, and I got a couple captures here. Right here you can see we have a terrible looking waveform, so we definitely have some issue on here, and I'm going to, at this point, just unplug modules one at a time and see if that waveform comes back. So I went through that whole connector, and I found when I unplugged the EPS, I had a perfect looking waveform, which I'm pulling up right here. So with that EPS unplugged, we have a really clean looking waveform right here. But you can see as I go and plug it back in, we have a terrible waveform again. Just a bunch of out of voltage. And then it comes back to a nice waveform. So we can see in real time here that when we connect that EPS to the network, it ruins that signal and is causing that weird communication issue where a couple modules are dropping out. So I'm going to leave that EPS unplugged. We're going to switch over to the topology now and just see here that we're no longer dropping communication to the ABS or the electronic parking brake with that EPS unplugged. Now I'm just going to do a DTC clear on this, see what fault codes come back. I'm expecting just fault codes relating to the no communication with the electronic power steering. Now you can see we're going to have some like terrain switch codes and Prindle codes because the center console is removed on this one, so I'm expecting those. But we still have our lost communication with power transfer unit in the DTCM, so that's going to be something to look at also. I'm going to want to see if anything changed with no communication to that one. Now I saw that the communication for the power transfer unit does go through this connector right here under the center console, so I reconnected that before checking communication again. So going back into the PTU now, still showing no response. This is the screen that if this was a new module, you would see the available flash for the module here, and then you'd be able to perform that and go from there. But since this is saying ECU is responding negatively, that's just a no communication on this one. So this one ended up timing out, and it stayed on the screen for a while, so I just cut this one here. All right, so we got the wiring diagram for the power transfer unit, and you can see a couple things. We got two powers up here, both those fuses tested good. And then this module communicates on a private CAN to the drivetrain control module, and then the drivetrain control module communicates over CAN-C. So going forward on this one, I'm going to want to load test the powers and grounds at the power transfer unit, and then just see if I have an issue on the drivetrain control module side for no communication to the power transfer unit, or if the power transfer unit itself is having an issue. So this is a very challenging connector to get to on these cars, so it's definitely going to require a lift and some components to be removed in order to get to that connector. So last thing I always like to do, since that module communicates through the drivetrain control module, it's always good to do an ECU reset on Chrysler. It's a great function. It saved me a lot of times. And just with that CAN-C network being pulled down, it's plausible that there was some type of issue with the drivetrain control module and maybe it got hung up. So always a good idea to do just a module reset, rule out it's nothing going on with that module, even a battery disconnect after you isolate the fault on the CAN network. In this case, resetting it didn't change anything. I still had no communication to the power transfer unit. So this one is going to be continued. The shop was unable to get this vehicle on a lift to do further testing for the EPS and the power transfer unit. So this one's going to be rescheduled when they have an open lift and can get me access to those components I need. So I will go back to this one at some point. I don't exactly know when I'll have the video up, but at some point in the future, when I go back, I'll make a follow-up video on this one to show you guys the rest of the testing and further findings on this one. So hope you guys like this one, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.